our own session. And thank you so much, AOP Bhavnagar, for providing this stage to share the knowledge and the scientific session. I have very good panelists, those who are doyens in this field. And so it makes my job very easy. Can we have a slide, please? So, not taking much introduction, Vijay Shah sir, retired professor from the GMC Surat, now is a director in Nirmal Children Hospital. Bhadresh Vyas sir, many of you will be the PG resident from him, the retired professor from Jamnagar, and now again guiding there by being there only. Dr. Dhara Gosai, taking care of the hemophilia patients at BJMC. She is associate professor over there. And Dr. Nishant, private practitioner, pediatric hematologist at Rajkot and the surrounding area also. Thank you so much. So with this, transforming the hemophilia care with emicizumab in patients living with hemophilia A. Next. With the disclaimers and the real-world disclaimers. The session flow will be from the evolution to the current challenges, why the prophylaxis matters, non-factor therapy with the emicizumab, real-world experience with it, emerging therapies and future directions with our expert panel discussion. So you see, there are 75 years of hemophilia treatment, starting with the 1950 to 2025 plus. And we have evolved from the transfusing plasma to the gene therapy. So we will take it like we are traveling through the time. So first, Vivisha sir, the era which was having cryo and the FFP, reflecting in the 1960s and 70s, when cryoprecipitate was the only option, how would you manage a patient with hemophilia A?
See, it's very important that we should know about this. Blood was the only product used for hemophilia since 1840. And for that purpose, for any blood disorder, only blood was used. Then in 1950s, plasma came into action. In 60s, cryo came into action. And then came the plasma-derived factor, then recombinant factor, gene therapy, extended half-life, and non-factor therapy. So up to 1950, blood, then plasma, then cryo. Now coming to the cryo. See, we all know cryo is separated from the plasma, and cryo is a very concentrated form of factor. But it's very important that cryo doesn't contain factor 9. It doesn't contain factor 11. So we cannot use it in factor 9 deficiency, that is hemophilia B, and factor 11 deficiency, that is hemophilia C. We can only use cryo in hemophilia A. 1 ml of cryo contains around 5 to 10 units of factor A, and accordingly we have to calculate. But important thing is, we cannot go beyond 30 units per 100 ml if we give cryo. See, it's very important because in surgery we have to maintain it to more than 70, 80, 100 units. So it's very difficult to maintain with the cryo.
So for cryo and going to the surgery is very difficult. For a severe injuries where we want to go for 100% factor level activity like a brain hemorrhage, cryo is not the answer. And the main concerns when how many bags to be given, how to arrange these donors, the blood grouping and everything, the sensitization. So these were the main concerns or advantages of giving these products. Any measures to have a new products to address this issue? Dr. Dhara?
Thank you, Dr. Nil ma'am. So, sir has already described overall history of all the products. But when we are talking in 1980s, so at that time, what the patients of hemophilia A was receiving was the plasma-driven factors. So most important concern was the transfusion-transmitted infections, and mainly HIV and hepatitis C infection. So we all know that during that era, it was very difficult to screen them in early window period and all that. So they all were somehow getting infected with this two infection, which was already life-threatening, we all know. But nowadays, in this era, the factor therapy what the hemophilia patients are receiving is primarily recombinant therapy. So we all know there is no, like zero chances of getting a blood transfusion related or any type of hepatitis B, C or HIV infection. So that is the today's era.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
See, we started our center in 2015, and since then this factor is available. Before that, plasma, blood, cryo was given, and at that time, so many of our patients, they were hepatitis C positive, hepatitis B positive, and HIV positive, to the tune of around 70-80%, we can say.
Yeah.
એટ ટુ દેટ આપણે નજીકમાં જ ખબર છે થેલેસીમિયા મેજર માટે જૂનાગઢમાં હિપેટાઇટિસ બીના કેસ થયા હતા જે લોકોને બ્લડ ટ્રાન્સફ્યુઝન આપ્યું દેર વોઝ પ્લેન્ટી ઓફ કેસીસ અકર્ડ because of blood related transmission of the disease like hepatitis B and hepatitis C and HIV much more than.
Yes, sir. So in 1980s era, when we want to move beyond the FFP and the cryo, was there any other better product which was available?
Yes, in 1980 I think Vijay Bhai, Goyal Sahib, we were when started our study that time. Whenever the hemophilia patient comes, initially diagnosis was prevalent, but clinically we find that hemoarthrosis just on demand. We were giving the whole blood, component of blood. That time the AJA era was there, and that time the factor has come, and that is plasma-derived factor. So benefit of that in comparison with cryoprecipitated and plasma-derived factor was that you can have specific treatment for hemophilia. So it contains the factor 8, but it was plasma-derived. So it was again some chances of getting blood transfusion infection way, but that was required in small in compounding on initially on demand. But that after that given prophylaxis to it, it is extended half-life. That type of the age is advanced 1980, 1890, and that type of the things has come up, and that was the advantage of special plasma-derived factor, and then the recombinant factor has come into market.
Yes. So this is how we learned the lesson from the past, that how the complications has ultimately led to the early replacement era, specifically the blood-borne viruses and the high rate of inhibitors that shaped the rigorous safety standards of all these products which are coming in the market. So, Nishant sir, in 1990 area, what further innovations they changed this therapy?
When we have a plasma-derived factor and we know the disadvantages of the plasma-derived factor concentrate, so the 1980s era was, then we moved to one of the very impactful thought or a very impactful invention in the treatment of hemophilia A, where we have started recombinant factor 8. So those are basically genetically engineered and it is produced from the cell culture. So there are absolutely zero chance of error for having a viral infections, but there are one disadvantage that it may convert into some inhibitors which produced in the patients.
Yeah. And that was the era where we were thinking that how to go more improvised version. So, Vibisha sir, what were the important clinical setbacks with these recombinant factors?
See, first recombinant factor came in 1992. Since then, there was a great change in the therapy of hemophilia. It was first generation, then second generation, then third generation, with increasing purity. And we started giving it in a prophylactic manner also. But what has happened, that the factor is a protein. We all know this, recombinant, it's a protein. Protein, when we induce in a body, will produce antibodies. So, body started producing antibodies against the factor, and that's how the effect of the factor wanes. So, this is one, that there is a production of inhibitor, that is antibody. That is one problem. Second, recombinant factor, they are really costly factors. I would not like to mention the prices, but when we floated our tender for the first time, it was so many times more than the plasma derived.
It is
So,
still
yeah.
still more.
Yeah, it's still more, yes. And third, of course, venous access is always required, may it be recombinant, may it be plasma. And last is, we don't know about this extended half-life, because extended half-life also contains some pegylation. So pegylation is there, polyethylene glycol is there, FC component is there. So body, how they will react, we don't know. So these are all the problems with the factor.
Yeah, so we got one good news, but the good news comes with some caveats also. So for this, do you think, Dhara, that there are still unmet needs for these children who are being treated with
Yes.
recombinant?
Yes. So we all have talked lot of advantages of recombinant factor therapy, but as we all know, there is further path which is very difficult. So, as per the literature, the patients who have received these factors over a period of time due to immunogenicity, they have started showing some problem. So, what we know it as an inhibitor development. So, routinely what happens? It is a kind of an out product. So, whenever any patient of hemophilia, they are getting exposed to this product over a period of time, the antibodies will start appear in that patient's body. Now, even if the child is continuously, regularly following the regime which is prescribed by the doctor, even though we start observing child is having major bleeding problems, major bleeding episodes, then we need to suspect there is some problem. So that is a presence of now inhibitors. So even if the protocols we are giving prophylaxis, child will not improve, because now this inhibitors will attach to the site of action of that factors. So that is a major problem which was faced in the patient who was on this factor regime. So even if we are offering this, they may have the chronic problem of joint damage, they may have major bleeding episodes, and they may have chronic arthropathy. So that was a new event which we were facing.
Yes, so still the patients were experiencing joint damage, not improving it, some minor blood bleedings in the joint which were going unnoticed every time the venous access, and many of them developing inhibitors. So with these inhibitors, a significant of patient, they had debilities. Now we are in the era of 2000. Any therapy for these patients who has developed inhibitors?
So definitely, inhibitors are there, the evolution has occurred. So there are, before non-factor therapy, few things are there still, we can treat the inhibitors. The inhibitors કેવી રીતે ઓછા કરી શકે? So suppose ITA therapy, that is long lasting immune tolerance induction. So તમે એટલા બધા factor 8 આપી દો કે જેથી કરીને immune system inhibitor ઓછા કરે. It sometimes eradicates, but એટલા બધા factor 8 આપવા માટે એટલા આવી જોઈએ, અને it's months together we have to go give the almost double, triple dose than usual, and for months together, it may not effectively affect the things, which is not possible sometimes. Other thing is you can use factor 7, NOVA 7 or something. At least when there is a inhibitor in presence of it may affect, and it don't eradicate, but it stops bleeding somewhere. And one of the reason where FEBA, which is activate APCC, that performance which bypasses the inhibitors and continue the function of coagulation function as usual, but that's why it is bypass agent, and that can help to functioning. So these three types, ITA you can use, or FEBA, or factor 7 or NOVA 7 you can use for the inhibitor. Before that, one thing is most important. When you use factor, then you should test for the inhibitors also. But as the Vijay Bhai has said, clinically also, when initially what response is and then the response is lost, we have to think the inhibitor presence.
Yes. So we got two therapies for the inhibitors. One is total clearance by ITI, but it doesn't have that great success. It's only 50% of the patients who are given ITI, they got rid of these inhibitors. So two bypassing agents which were very wonderful, factor 7 and APCC. But the cost of these three, all the three therapies, exorbitant. Was there any other options we had? Because the antibodies, all the factor 8 antibodies, they are not inhibitors, but all the inhibitors, they are factor 8 antibodies. Because some they neutralize, some they are non-neutralizing antibodies. So those who neutralize, they are the specific antibodies.
And sometimes it increases thrombotic risk also when we are giving bypassing it too much. That was the one side effect also, was that it was included the risk of thrombosis.
Yes, we wanted to go for thrombosis, but excessive thrombosis can occur and can lead to
Nehal,
thrombotic.
can I, regarding this ITI, we have a very small experience of giving ITI. We gave it in 3 patients, 10 years age, 2 patients, one is of 6 years. Surprisingly, we gave in the dose of half than what is needed, 50 units per kg daily, and inhibitors disappeared in 3 to 6 months. So it's surprising, like say in all the textbooks, all the literature, it's written that it takes 5 to 6 years, but our experience is excellent.
Yes. So, Dr. Nishant, as we know, on-demand therapy, there are peaks, there are trumps, and the development of inhibitors. Do you think the on-demand therapy is good, or we should go for a prophylaxis?
As we start with the factor concentrate availability, it was initially on-demand therapy. On-demand, it means when there is a bleeding, when there are the hemarthropathy, then we need to give a factor which is basically giving rise to the acute condition. So this acute condition, whatever we use, that is called the on-demand therapy. જ્યારે જરૂર પડે છે ત્યારે આપણે આપીએ છીએ. Then comes the prophylactic factor therapy. First with the plasma derived factor, then comes the recombinant, then comes the extended half-life recombinant agent. But now if I say on-demand therapy is a standard of care, so I might be wrong. Nowadays standard of care has shifted totally to the prophylactic. I know that prophylactic છે બધી જગ્યાએ available નથી. Still many of the patients are being managed on on-demand therapy. But standard of care, if you say, that is a prophylactic therapy per se.
Yeah. So prophylaxis, specifically to prevent all type of the bleeds. I would like you to tell something about the treatment approaches for on-demand versus prophylaxis. What are the key considerations?
On-demand, if we say, when there is a demand, you will supplement that. That is called the on-demand. But we have a risk to the on-demand. The key consideration being, it is a lower overall volume of the factor, that is thing. And pros and cons, if you see, it cannot prevent a further bleeding or a long-term bleeding. That is the major drawback of on-demand therapy because of usual half-life. On the other side, if you see a factor prophylaxis, which is to be given on a scheduled basis. Ideally, it should be given twice a week, or it should be given 3 times a week. But multiple pricks the patient has to go through. But there is a certain level of the factor level, so there is a less likely that they will bleed. And once they will bleed, even though patient is on a prophylactic, we need to supplement with the factor concentrate.
Yeah. So now we have a prophylactic therapy that will prevent the bleed. We are not treating the bleeds. We are not having the joint which will get swollen, arthropathy will be there, and we are treating the bleeds. Still, is there any unmet needs or disease burden, Bibisha sir?
Yes, see, initially we started with the on-demand. On-demand means when there is a bleed, give factor, bleeding stops, again there can be bleed. Then we started with the prophylaxis. Prophylaxis, we started in 2016, prophylactic therapy with the this recombinant factor. But even with the prophylaxis, there can be a bleed. Because what happens, you give factor and then it's going to go down. What is the concept of prophylaxis? You maintain factor level to more than 1%. But if a dose is missed, again it's going to go down, child can bleed or an adult can bleed at that particular point of time, and even a single bleed can produce joint damage. So still after prophylaxis, there can be bleed, joint can be damaged, and disease burden increases. So this, even after the prophylaxis, this is a problem.
And this can occur when the patient is on IV drug on prophylaxis. The venous access is really a challenge because every second day you need to take something on your IV, and that is a big volume also. So that ultimately negatively affects the quality of life. That's why the unmet needs are still there with the current therapies, breakthrough bleeding, quality of life, limited options with the inhibitors patient, and we need a sustained bleed protection with the long-term joint prophylaxis. So to decrease this, one more development occurred, and that was extended half-life, so that the daily or alternate day IV infusion can be decreased. So, Dr. Dhara, will you tell us something about in 2010 of extended half-life factors?
So it was actually a miracle for a child of hemophilia A, because such a small kid who is having their like wish to play, wish to have all the physical activity which is comparable to the same age group child. So for them it was a boon. Like in comparison to standard half-life factor, there are so many advantages of extended half-life factor. Starting from the frequency, like frequency of administration, it is significantly less as compared to the standard. So when there is a frequency is low, the child will have low prick threshold is low, pain threshold is reduced. Because when any children is on like intermittent or frequent IV medication, we all know it is difficult to get the proper IV access also. So this all the things will reduce when we are using this extended half-life. Another thing, when we are using extended half-life, when you compare the truth level, then there is a consistent level which is higher than the proper, which was observed with the standard one, where we are getting peak and low, there is a higher continuous truth level, which is very important to prevent the major bleeding episodes. This was again a good point which was observed with this extended half-life factors.
Yes, so extended half-life, they changed something from lower frequencies of injections, but there was still something we were aspiring for. That came the non-factor therapy. So why we needed a non-factor therapy?
Yes, we have seen the problems, even benefits and problems with occurring. That is limitation also, we can say, with the factor therapy like inhibitor. You have to come daily to the hospital, IV lines, quality of life is impaired. So people, even as the Vijaybhai has said, કે prophylaxis આપીએ તો bleeding stop થઈ જાય એવું નથી હોતું. These both the studies as previous slides, it shows that even you give prophylaxis or even in mild hemophilia doesn't mild most of the time. Micro hemolysis or micro bleeding can occur in bigger joint, which can cause even damage to cartilages, and further it can damage the whole deformity can occur because of the time as you give, whenever you give the factor, it surges at the maximum. But in between, it can go down also. So during maximum problem occurs with the hemolysis. So even prophylaxis has some side effect. And particularly, this study also says, even you put on factors or there, more than 50% patients are having found hemolysis. That's why we need it. કે ભાઈ જેમાં hemolysis ન થાય, continuous any effect આપે, instead of IV, એ સબક્યુટેન્સલી આપી શકે, ડેઈલીને બદલે કદાચ 3 અઠવાડિયે 4 અઠવાડિયે આપી શકે, અને ઇન્હિબિટર્સ ના હોય. તો that was the ideal situation when any patient can live that normal life. And that's why it creates a day requirement of non-factor therapy. Why non-factor? Because factor have inhibitor, but not factor. These non-factors like an amicizumab and others, we do not have inhibitors, so they can give and continuously effect rather than peak or say even low down decrease the hemolysis. Compliance is found better. It can be given at home also and maintain the quality of life further. So it was the required of this age, and it is luckily started. We have that type of the substances available, which is in the form of amicizumab, that we will discuss more than this one.
Yeah, so vascular access, trauma, bleeding, the subclinical bleedings, and the peak and trough levels, all these were there and only one answer, and that was the non-factor therapy. For this non-factor therapy, the paradigm shifted from improvement in the hemophilia to the improvement in the treatment. The focus shifted, functional endpoints became, and we wanted the hemophilic child to live a normal life, the quality of life which we all live. So Nishant, do we talk about quality of life also?
Yes, definitely. Giving a factor and just keeping a resolution of hemophilic arthropathy or the bleeding episode doesn't make much difference if it doesn't impact the patient's life. So always you need to ask કે તમને કેવું લાગે છે, તમને કેવો અનુભવ થાય છે. That is called the health related quality of life. So there is a lifestyle limitation. It can decreases the financial burden of the family. At the same time, there is a reduced in the pain and the disability. Newer concept of the psychological impact of the hemophilia, the bleeding in the patients with the hemophilia, that also has been improved. And the last thing is impact on the caregivers as well. So the all factors, parameter which are included in the health-related quality of life, they must be improved.
So improvement in the quality of life, adherence is important. Vibhisha sir.
Yes, it's very important that patient should be adhered to the therapy. Now what has happened with the present therapy, with the present prophylaxis also, patient has to keep on coming at a regular interval. The factor has to be given intravenously. So lot of time is wasted, lot of money is also wasted. In a children, to take intravenous line, you can see child less than 1 year of age, once a week or twice a week, we have to take intravenous line, give factor. It's so difficult, and that's why adherence is difficult. So we need to have a certain non-factor based therapy wherein the adherence improves. It's possible if we can give it subcutaneously. We can give it, say, every week, every 2 weeks, or even every 4 weeks. So such type of the therapy, if available, it's better, and it's actually available.
Yeah, so Dhara, can you tell us what is non-factor therapy?
So, this is a recent one, what we are here now to discuss, because this is an excellent therapy. Here, non-replacement therapy is widely categorized into the two classification. One is factor mimetics, second is rebalancing agent. So first one is the imicizumab, that is factor mimetics. It is basically working on the same mechanism, which is our factors work. And the second group of agents, concizumab and all that, they are working on a mechanism of rebalancing theory. Till now, we all are focusing on how to supplement factor VIII, how to have that deficiency level to be corrected. Now this has given the next vision, where in a deficiency of factor, we are trying to inhibit the antithrombotic mechanisms. So this is a new vision we all have got. So this is really a good two aspect. This is shown in this figure, where we can see over the left side, till now we are focusing, over the factor supplementation. Over the right side, the new mechanism has started, where we are inhibiting this path mainly over the antithrombin and tissue factor pathway inhibitor, which is actually a new and good mechanism. Most important thing of both this agent is the administration route. That is the most important thing, because it is subcutaneous. We all know, we are just talking about the pediatric patient. Just imagine yourself as a patient of hemophilia. What we all prefer, IV or sub-Q? Good. So just to awake from the post-lunch little bit dizziness, I have asked this question. So we all know imicizumab is a good drug which can be offered subcutaneously, which is very painless as compared to the conventional one. And the frequency is also less. Child are happy to receive this drug. That is our personal opinion. So this is a newer agent. Bhadresh sir will take over.
Yeah, so in 2010 era, we received a wonder drug. Like for whatever deficiency we were giving deficient factors only. Either it is plasma derived, then it is recombinant, but that factor only. Trough, peaks, bleeding, that was going on. Now this wonder drug has maintained a plasma balance. So there were no bleeds in between, and that was emicizumab. So what is emicizumab then?
Same as we're discussing, is a non-factor therapy. And it is also bypass type of reaction when the factor deficiency is there here. So the whole cascade, we know that coagulation cascade, where we needed factor 8 to activate 9 and 10, and again thrombin that cascade, the flow should be maintained. Here there is no factor 8. And even that's why it was like a duplicate of it. In short, emicizumab, where we can give subcutaneous injection, we can give 3 weekly or 4 weekly, there is no inhibitors, and it is easy to get it. In the government of India, we can get free of cost even. So all the like in lighter mode, say when factor we are using an inhibitor, is like marriage, where we have inhibitors after marriage, but emicizumab is like a girlfriend or boyfriend, without inhibitors probably.
So now, as the panelists are so good, I would like to throw them some rapid fire questions. So for Nishant, effective in PWH with or without inhibitors, emicizumab.
Yes, it is available for inhibitors as well as non-inhibitors.
So both,
Both.
with and without inhibitors. We have one single wonder drug which is there for hemophilia A patients. Single answer. With inhibitors, without inhibitor, don't think about it. Just go for emicizumab. Sir, Bibisha sir, steady state light plasma levels, does it possible with the emicizumab? No trough, no peak?
Yeah, see, there is a steady state level is maintained. It's equivalent to 20 units in blood. It's very high. So when you give emicizumab, don't worry, it will not go down. It will be maintained at the same level. So bleed won't be there. And that's what we have seen in our 188 patients. No bleed practically. It's just a wonder drug.
Yes, so you can see all the steady state level, no peaks, no troughs. Dara, do you develop inhibitors to emicizumab?
Till now, no.
Till now, no. So there are one or two incidences, but they are non-neutralizing bodies, so they don't. Yeah, so they don't inhibit emicizumab. Bhadresh Vyas sir, requirement of lab monitoring is needed.
No needed.
No
What's
need.
No needed.
So no need of lab monitoring with the emicizumab. You can design your dose which is recommended, give it, and be worry-free. Nishant, interference, if I want to go subject that patient for the gene therapy or surgeries, is there any interference?
No, madam, there is no interfering with the gene therapy because it is gene editing. Gene is basically an editing therapy and it works from the different mechanism. So there is no issues with a gene editing therapy as well as if you providing continuously emicizumab therapy.
Yes, so thank you so much all my panelists. Such a wonderful drug we all are having, and we all are having it free of cost with our help of Gujarat government. Thank you so much. I am skipping all other things. But yes, we have a wonder drug. So please refer any of your patients of hemophilia, and then we will try to treat them best.
Thank you, Nell.